Anastasia, your whole coaching practice and your podcast Beyond the Noise exists for leaders who have everyone's answer except a place to think. And when I pitched you this episode as a burnout conversation, you shut that down very fast.
It made me smile because, yes, I did push back on the burnout when we were planning for this conversation. And the reason I pushed back on the burnout conversation is because a lot of people, they basically mix the two together. So there is a big mental load, and this is what lots of leaders have. So they putting out fires every day, they making decisions every day, and most of the decisions are not for themselves or for their progress, for their personal lives even. It's mainly for their company, for the people around them. You know, as we all know, leaders carry a lot of responsibility in raising other people, raising them up, supporting them, and they become key people that people turn to in the times of uncertainty. So they would be almost expected to know the answers where they may not have those answers yet themselves. And this is when a lot of, because there's so much responsibility, there's so many people and families depending on them, the whole business depends on them. They do have to pick what do they spend their time, their energy on. And a lot of the time, they do not pick themselves. They put themselves on pause. So any issues they have, any decisions they may be pending in their lives, whether that's professionally, personally, in any way, they hit pause because others need them, and that's part of the job. And this is when none of those things go away necessarily. They just sit there quietly, and they sort of ramping up slowly because, yeah, there's no deadline on all those decisions, but it does exist because certain things, the time will arrive, they will have to be answered right now, and they will have to be decided right now. And I find that a lot of people come to me for these conversations when it's already hit crisis moment, where they realize that, yes, I've been prioritizing my business, I've been prioritizing my people and everything I've invested and grown, but actually my own personal life or my own personal trajectory and career, my future is now at the massive, it's basically at the peril of all that I did. And yeah, so this is where people mistake that for burnout, because these things are the background, they hit crisis moments, and the answers and the responsibilities of the business, they don't go away anywhere. So that's when people start feeling like they're burning out, that there's too much that is required of them, that is not, they don't have enough time or energy to, tend to everyone, including themselves. But I would say this is not burnout. This is just a prioritization issue. It's when people forget that although you are growing something, you're investing in business, you're growing teams and products, you do have to, at that time, specifically almost schedule that time for yourself to sit down and actually address those things that usually during day-to-day life you put on pause.
And why that happens in the first place? So you mentioned a few things, but when we live in a world where thinking time is a luxury, what are the early signs that they notice to get in that position to have the power to ask for help?
I think it's ongoing answers. I don't have time for this right now. So whenever you start in the day-to-day conversations coming up with the reasons not to, the reasons, and there are valid reasons for that. Whenever you start hearing a lot, I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for something else, or I don't have time, this must be priority, because so what happens is that we pretend that there is a deadline. So give me just a week and I'll address this. Another month, and once this project, we're just going to deliver this. And at that point, I'm going to address all of that, backlog of things that I have to address. So when you start noticing that this became your normal answer, So whenever something comes up about yourself or about something that is not work related necessarily, it might be even work related. Even those questions not always have, they don't, leaders don't have time to answer those too. What direction are we taking? Are we still in the right trajectory? But there isn't enough time, like you said. The thinking time is luxury. Time is luxury, full stop. There's not enough time to always actually pause, sit down and think, actually, are we still heading where we want to head? And it becomes this pattern. So whenever you start noticing that pattern, I feel that's the best time to ask yourself why there is not enough time. And what can I do to find that time? Because if these questions are popping up more and more often, which they do, they will hit critical mass, and that's when it's going to be a crisis. And as you know, it's not the best place to make decisions, and especially big decisions, in a state of crisis. You want to be taking it, at your own pace, with your own rules applied, not when it's taken out of your hands and now you just have to deal with what's left.
Yeah, because when that happens, it's usually not too late, but as you mentioned, like a crisis moment. And can you walk me without naming the name of the client to a situation in which they came to you with the exact same scenario that you describe? If possible, sharing what they're saying.
That's great. And I could definitely do that. Yeah, I will try to shy away from indicating who that was for no reasons. But the situation was that somebody came and they said, I have no time to do any of this, and everything is burning right now. So not to mention the day-to-day, it's as I described it, sort of like putting down the fires, but everything around them was on fire, it seemed to them at the time. So if anyone was to imagine that, that's a pretty uncomfortable place to be, right? Everything is burning. And when you are in that situation, it's very difficult to keep your thinking straight and make the best decision for yourself. And this was why that person, that leader, turned to me, because they needed to almost reduce the noise that was happening from everywhere else and find that issue that would be the most critical to solve right now. Because when you feel like everything is burning, everything is important. So where do you turn? It's very difficult to decide. And this is when having a thinking partner, call it, somebody who is not biased to you personally, to your situation, to your direction, comes in incredibly helpful, because they're able to see the patterns that emerge once you share what's happening. And this is what I do with my work. This is what I did for this leader. We've noticed a pattern, and we then through the conversations, the one issue emerged, and he needed to address the direction he was taking professionally, because everything else was affected by it. And this is when, sometimes we like to look at problems two-dimensionally. I don't do that, because I know that your work life is affected by your home life, by your personal relationships, by, so many things. And this is what he noticed. He noticed that the fact that he wasn't deciding at the time his direction professionally, everything else was affected. His home life was affected and felt like it was on fire. His day-to-day was affected because he felt that he wasn't satisfied. It wasn't bringing him the satisfaction, being in the place that he was. So all of his decisions were affected by this one thing that he was sort of putting away. The time next year, once the new year, once the next quarter rolls in, that's when I'm going to decide. And that's what he was telling himself and everybody else. We'll decide this at some point soon, but it wasn't, he didn't, and something else came up, and another project, another crisis that he needed to address, that it wasn't him, and he needed to pour his energy and attention to. And the outcome of this, which is the most fascinating, is that if we do identify this one issue that we need to address, the one that we've been hiding away from, everything else almost starts to fall into its right place. So once he decided where he's gonna go next professionally, he focused his attention there, but his family life calmed down because there was stability there. He described that he felt like his family was feeling that direction from him, so they were not being, not giving him hard time, so to speak, because there's other people than your work and your company that depend on you as well. And his professional life improved because he knew exact steps he needs to take right now to get him to where he needs to be. So all that noise disappeared. See, he wasn't, deciding so quickly. He didn't feel need to decide quickly because he knew exactly trajectory where he was headed. And and this is probably the most powerful thing that you can achieve by addressing all these things that you are usually putting on pause.
And what's fascinating is that when you arrive at that point of clarity, as you mentioned, like everything seems much more easier and at peace because like you're on the right track rather than being lost and being basically in that situation in which you don't make that time to think or to talk to someone. And we always think that we know so much, right? But we cannot see. I know it's cliche, but you cannot see the label from inside the jar, and that outside perspective will always prevail among making better decisions, seeing patterns you cannot simply see by yourself, and so on. And still, like, what do you notice, speaking of patterns, they try before coming and asking for help?
So like anybody, they try to bring it up with their friends and family, which is incredibly powerful. Not everybody has luxury to have the right people around them, but if you do, that can be a solution on its own. If there is people around you that have been through similar things, and they're not afraid to call you up on certain things, and you're willing to open and listen, that could be a very powerful situation on its own. And potentially the one that doesn't take you to the crisis, the one that, sort of prevents that in a way. And I think this is the biggest thing people turn to. Sometimes people turn to therapy. That also can be very helpful. Sometimes people turn to other modalities, maybe journaling, maybe focusing on their health sometimes to clear their mind. That helps a lot. A lot of people I see, they go for long runs just to escape, the burning fires, so to speak. And all of that has its place. But as you said, when you're having a confidential, honest conversation, almost with another person who doesn't have connection to you, it becomes extra powerful because there's nothing. I have no interest apart from success when I sit across in front of the person. So I don't, when you have friends, they still think, oh, if you're thinking to relocate, let's say, you want to move for your job, you want to completely pivot and go somewhere else, whether you like it or not, in your friend, you're going to share this with your friends, and they'll probably be supportive, but there'll be a little bit of that, maybe you should stay, maybe it's good here. What's wrong with here,
I can resonate so much with that. I
That's
remember.
natural. It's very human. It's a very human thing to do because we all have interest. You have invested interest in that person. You want to keep that person around. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to recognize that not everybody will be, sort of thinking just about you and how to achieve the best result for you. And this is when coaching comes in, amazingly, because there is a person there that knows exactly what you want to achieve and will watch out and has enough hours around people just like yourself to spot and notice, as you mentioned, certain patterns. The person won't be afraid to pull you up on something that, some sort of untruth, so to speak, that you keep repeating to yourself, and challenge that as well. So these moments may feel at the time uncomfortable, but they're the most powerful sort of ignition to push you forward and get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And speaking of like friends, family members, indeed, when someone is so involved emotionally, I remember 7 years ago when I started nomading. Well, family and friends were supportive. Indeed, there was that small pushback, like, are you sure about this? You'll be gone for so long. Will you ever come back more than once a year? And all those type of questions, like, you know, that felt a bit, oh shit, I'm actually doing this, like, and you realize that indeed you'll leave family and friends behind for a long period of time. Those things can derail you quite a bit. And not to mention when it comes to business, quote unquote, advice from family and friends that don't have business knowledge, they don't have coaching knowledge, they are involved. Again, I know we're repeating ourselves, but they are involved emotionally. They want your best, but in the same time, they don't allow you to go out of your comfort zone, out there and actually find ways that are not traditional or, I know, by the standard playbook safe. And then all of that can just put roadblocks in your way.
And it's not in any sort of, they don't have any bad intentions in their heart. It happens naturally. It happens, like you mentioned, because of fear, and that fear stems from even fear of you changing, even fear of you going somewhere and becoming somebody else, even if that somebody else is better. It still brings this, a sort of a very basic brain function that we have, the survival function. If something changes, is scary. So even change of a person for betterment of themselves and their life, it still brings out fear. This is why so many people are sometimes stuck and not making decisions that are right there in front of them, because they themselves are scared, and maybe they have people around them who are also scared, and they will mainly almost reinforce the fact that, oh, well, that's good that I'm not doing this, because everybody else tells me it's going to be scary. I feel uncomfortable, so and you stay where you are.
Yeah, and often staying when you are is not the best idea. Uh, and but speaking of movement, like you mentioned, running away from your responsibilities, maybe, or your thoughts and so on. But if let's say someone try all those things, maybe they don't necessarily take advice from their family or friends, but they journal, they go to the gym, or they run, or they do different kind of sports in which they have the ability to maybe not listen to a podcast but if it's Authority in the Wild or Beyond the Noise, please listen to the podcast while you while you exercise. But if they do all these playbooks that are being shared online and so on, and they say like, oh, I'm a smart leader, I should be able to think alone, I don't need outside perspectives, or maybe I have my board members and so on, but still in reality they don't take time, to think alone, or they don't take time to truly listen to, let's say, their board members or other people that they surround themselves with, and then they continue doing the same pattern. Why that happens?
It's a great question. I think in a way happens because of a little bit of a comfort. So you feel comfortable. There is this pattern that humans have, is that it's difficult for us to make a change or move somewhere or do something if we feel comfortable. So if you feel comfortable in that situation, the drive to change, the drive to, maybe look into the places that are a bit uncomfortable, maybe address certain questions that are a little bit, are going to be tense. It's not going to be easy to answer. You'll see things you don't like to see there if you look. Why would you do that if you're comfortable?
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with comfort as well. But if you know in your heart that there is more potential in you, you would like to learn and you like to grow and you like to move forward, there is almost no other way to do it. You only grow in uncomfortable places, unfortunately.
Oh yes, often comfort can be such a trap, and uh, there are benefits to it, I would say. Like, and speaking of traveling and since I settled for a longer period of time, there are a lot of benefits in the comfort of having a routine, having you know, a certain lifestyle comparing to the one when I was moving a lot. But in the same time, the biggest breakthroughs that I had where I was literally in discomfort, like having to find solution fast in different scenarios, maybe even things that we sometimes take for granted, like the temperature, like being in a climate where the temperature is like moderate, not too hot, not too cold, can feel way too comfortable, and that can help a lot. But in the same time, where like, damn, this is too hot, I cannot, or too cold, I cannot stay still on my desk for too long. I will need to find a solution fast and then to be able to move my body or whatever. Maybe a dumb example, but I'm thinking like this can be like a yo-yo in which like the comfort or the discomfort can play nicely to you or and the other way around. So what's the threshold there, like comfortable to get with the comfort and the other way around?
I think your example was great because it's very human. I think we open in these situations, whether while we're traveling or if you do relocate and you experience different climates. I think that was a great example because the reason I'm saying that is because it shows you how any one of us can have a narrative in mind saying, I could never work there because it's too hot, or I could never go there and live there because it's too cold. So, and this is already limiting your options. And nobody asks, why can't you? There's ways to keep yourself cool and ways to keep yourself warm. And, there's beauty in different climates, and why not? But a lot of the time, just to simplify things in our brain, we tend to go into black and white thinking. And this is when it's a massive trap. So it's either this way and nothing else, or we need to be that way or not the other way. And this is also a trap that lots of leaders fall into, because in day to day, especially when they have been in certain situations for a long time, they cannot actually see how it could be any different. So when I run my company, it has to be difficult. I have to be on all the time. I have to have no time for my family or friends. And they don't see any other way. Why does it have to be that way? And these are the amazing traps.
Yes, indeed. Like the answer is like not going to extremes. Like you cannot just do the hard way or the easy way. You need to have some sort of balance between.
I would even build on that. I would think, notice and try and notice when you go into extremes, because this is when something is off. So when you hear yourself think or say, I can never do this, that's impossible. It's only this way that we can do it. There's no other way. This is purely not true. This is, we have so many different options right now in the world available to everybody that having only, yes and no answer or correct and correct it's not really a thing. And I would encourage everybody, I think, to maybe, just as an experiment, to, while you go through your day, notice whenever something comes up, oh, I could never do that. Let's say I could never, run 5 miles, let's say somebody may say, or I could never take that role at work.
Yes,
why
but
can't you?
that's my question too. Like, because a lot of people say that they cannot, and because if you think about it, like, let's portray these busy leaders, right? And if you think about space to think as, it almost sounds like a meditation app, like with a coach attached to it. But what is the work they have to do in order to actually have that space to think? Because if they're rushing all the time, if they don't take breaks, one option is the one that you mentioned, like finding someone to talk to, like finding a coach, hiring a coach, and so on. And that's definitely helpful. But they're like, all right, until I do that, like, what are some practicalities they can do on a daily basis to make sure they have that space?
I think the easiest thing, and that's available to everybody, we all have smartphones, is literally time blocking. It's consciously deciding for yourself that right now I will be, this half an hour is my half an hour. In this half an hour, decide what you're going to do. You know, you're going to turn off your phone. You're going to maybe even sit down somewhere away from your family. If you have a big family, that can be also distracting. Maybe take a walk somewhere, but pull yourself from your normal day to day and allow yourself to have that time just for yourself. And this is extremely hard. But if you do that, it's going to transform your whole day going forward. If every day, or let's say maybe people don't have time every day, but once a week, you take an hour, and that hour is going to just for you, even pouring out all the issues that you have, taking pen and paper, just pouring out all the questions that are unanswered, all that backlog that I've mentioned earlier in the beginning of the conversation, everything that you put pause on, pour it out. And that hour is not going to fix it. I'm just being honest. It's not going to fix it. But what it's going to do is going to allow you to face what you have to deal with, whether that's on paper, whether that's a voice note, maybe, whatever works for anybody. And actually see that these things are important, and these things you should not be putting, on the back burner for too long. And next step, once you got into habit of doing that, you can try and decide which one of these is incredibly, incredibly valid right now. This is very important right now. And if I don't do anything about this right now, in 3 months' time, that's going to become a crisis. And this is what you want to avoid. I know lots of people get to that point, and that's where actions start to happen. But if you can avoid getting to a crisis situation, I would advise you to do that in any means necessary, because then you take decision, you make these decisions, on your own terms, so to speak. So you make moves on your own terms, not because you're pushed to do it or you're pushed in a certain direction.
And there are certain questions people should ask themselves in those moments.
I don't think there is a rule, because we're all so different. We think so differently. I think it's just in those moments, allowing yourself not to be distracted and only focusing on your needs. That alone rewires your brain, so to speak, to then take it into your day and also start thinking about yourself and about your needs and your priorities and your big questions that you may have right now. And in order for you to, the reason it's so important to take that time, whether that's once a week or if you can every day, that's amazing, is because we live in such a fast-paced world. If you don't schedule it, something else is going to take that time. If you're looking at leaders, if they don't block anything out, somebody else is going to take control of that time. And then there is no space for you. So what do? How long can you go in your life successfully without addressing your needs and your priorities? For a while, but then, you're going to hit that moment where, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and while you mentioned that this can be hard, in the same time, as any of us book call with someone or book, I don't know, a dinner or whatever, or the time to go to the gym and so on, the same way we can book a call, if you want, or meeting with ourselves, in which we literally are just with ourselves, as you mentioned, without distraction. And speaking of distraction, like we start implementing a habit in our household in which we don't walk with our phones anymore outside, and that changed the whole walk. Like we had time to think about things or discuss things that previously weren't an option, because we're like always a small notification or a distraction, or oh, let's take a photo or whatever. And that changed a lot. And another thing, like not using the phone before, I think it's 1 or 2 p.m. when it's the lunch break, and just it sits behind the TV, no phone in the dorm, in the, how call it, bedroom. And all that changed a lot the simply perception of time, because you just end up with the phone in your hand and you're dumb scrolling, and you realize where the hour flew.
Exactly. And we're all affected by this. And I think obviously times are changing and people are becoming more and more aware of how that affects us on a day-to-day basis, but it affects you on every level. If you have your work email on your phone and you wake up and first thing you see is loads of emails coming in, especially with people I work with, they work different time zones. So these requests and emails and all sorts of issues will be coming up all night long because somebody else is working, let's say. So if the first thing you see when you open your eyes, or even before you open your eyes properly, is a list of stacked up list of issues to deal with for the day, you are not dealing with anything else. That's all you're doing that day. And yes, these are critical, but this proves my point that if you do not schedule, if you do not address it consciously, that I need that time, I need that space to think, whether by myself, with the help of coach or with the help of therapist, or whatever people like to do, you know, whatever resonates with their needs, that time will be taken away these days from you, even if you're just doom scrolling, or even if that's email, or maybe there's a friend calling and needs your help and you need to have a chat, you know, you have half an hour between your meetings and you're having a chat with them instead of taking that time, you know, to sit down and actually think about your own situation.
Yeah, so true, because if everyone is important, nothing is important. And if you wake up in that stressful mode in which you see, I don't know, like dozens of notifications or emails, you're already done, as you mentioned. You won't have control over that day. And yeah, it in the same time, you know, we fight with billion-dollar companies that are investing massively to make us addictive. And while there are, as you mentioned, people are getting more aware and we start to act accordingly, because at the end of the day, we have one life and we spend hours and hours and hours in day to day to scroll. That won't help, or not even to scroll, just to use the phone as a working tool in which you read your emails or and so on. I think I have now for like over 1 year the notification stop for emails on my phone, simply because it's like, even if I'm on a, let's say, break and I check my phone or I want to make a call, if I see that notification, I will dive into that email to get it off my plate.
It's just made so psychologically you go in there and you just can't help yourself. That's why that's why I think in our family we talked about this phenomenon that everything went into text. And if you think about this, if your phone rings and you see somebody's ringing, it's your decision. You'll decide whether you want to answer that call and, you know, indulge the conversation that's on the other end. If it's a text, you will definitely read it. You will see come up the notification come up, text, email, whatever that is, you will definitely read it. And whether you like it or not, you're already engaged in that conversation. So so it is psychologically designed for sure. And again, I was in technology my a good chunk of my career. So it is designed to encourage people to use it. That's how it's phrased, encourage people to use it. But
Very ethical.
but there are some very, very distinct sort of side effects of that we are now all seeing. And yeah, I had people come in to me and they would say, "Oh yeah, I wake up and I have 100 notifications in the morning when I pick up my phone." So I don't even know how I would personally deal with the fact that you know, when I pick up my phone, I have 100 notifications, and that's not just notifications. These are uh, issues, you know, critical states and things that you need to somehow contribute and solve and fix.
Yeah, so your mental runway is out in a second.
And this is where burnout doesn't fit these situations, because it's literally running out of space to even store and process the things that are critical for you, like they're important for you personally. When everything else borrows that time, borrows that space, takes that space from you, then at the end of the day, you have nothing left. You know, at the end of the day, after you've been dealt with your 100 notifications and we fixed everything, so to speak, until tomorrow, the last thing you want is to sit down and have a deep, meaningful conversation unless there's no other choice. Yeah, unless you realize that this is incredibly important.
Yeah, so true. And what I wanted to ask you is like, all right, so you do this, like you do schedule time with yourself, and I want to know more on how having enough runway looks in practice. Like, for example, what conditions will be able to create that honest thinking possible?
I think the key word here that you said is honesty. It's realizing what belongs to you and what doesn't. And being very ruthless to see what you take on upon yourself and what critical right now, what matters right now. Because especially when you run your own business, you're growing something, you're growing company, or your own company, or maybe you are, climbing up the ladder. There's always something really important, but it doesn't always belong to you. And this is when you have to be very, very honest with yourself. Why are you taking it upon yourself if it doesn't belong to you? Why are you spending so much time on something that, you could potentially maybe delegate to somebody else? And, the answers are different here. For some people, it's ego. So they feel that they want to contribute because they feel like nobody else can do as well as they do. And that's a very big
That's a
factor.
classic one. Yeah, I've been through
Yeah.
that. It took me
Yeah.
years to outsource things. It's crazy.
And then you think so much time you lose. You lost so much time because you didn't do that. But that's across the board. It's very common. Another thing is when people, I had a few people come in where they came from technical background and they've rose up into more managerial, more executive positions. Then it's very difficult for you to let go of not contributing. What does your work look like now? What do I produce? Because you're used to producing things, you used to,
Building things. Yeah.
building things. And now, what does your KPI look like? And nobody talks about this whenever, you go promoting. Like, nobody corrects that. So your achievement now is valued at this. This is what's going to be good if you achieve this. Nobody reframes that. So these people also then go in, well, they have to do lots of internal work to realize, what do I bring now to the table? What is my value now if my value is not physically hands-on building stuff? So this is also very, very common thing. And this is where honesty is the only way to deal with it. Is honestly look at, why am I doing this? What takes up my space? And do I need to actually be there physically doing, involved or involved as much? You might always need to be involved, especially if it's your own business. But how much of that involvement is required of you specifically? And this is the only way to solve that mental runway, because these are the things that you let into your life that take away your. We only have in the day. We only have a limited amount of attention and energy to deal with things. So what would be the most productive thing for you to point your attention towards today? And when you can honestly answer this question, then everything else falls into place. Then everything, all that extra smoke that is present that takes away the sort of like nibbles upon your upon your energy, it melts away, because I don't need that. I can just delegate that. I don't need that. We don't even need to. This could be an email, or I can outsource that. My assistant can deal with that. And it sounds very simple, but when you're in the midst of it, it's very, very difficult for yourself alone to create that structure for yourself if there is no other support.
Yeah, absolutely. Since again, to the association with the jar and the label, it's so freaking hard to see. And I did an exercise at the beginning of the year. Happened to be in a room where instead of setting New Year resolution, wrote down what we remove from our life in terms of responsibilities, in terms of things that we do without helping us, and a bunch of other things. And that exercise to simply remove things from your plate, it's so underrated, because yeah, there is so much space we can have in our mind, in our day to day, without like running out of bandwidth. And we often see like, all right, but we live in this age of AI where you can do way more things than anyone else because you have access to this technology, you need to take advantage of it and all that stuff. And still, that while make us more productive, we end up working more to keep up with the Jones. That's not a not a nice path to end up on.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to wake up one day and see everything they've been trying to achieve or build being in jeopardy in some way or the other, because, this is your life. You want to do the best. It's just we only get one. We want to do the best we can. And this is when starting to pay attention to your own personal patterns and the way you behave, the way you think, the way you structure things is ultimately what makes the difference these days, because everybody has access to all the skills and tools, but not many people actually slow down. They pick up pace instead.
Yeah, but I was sitting, I think, a couple of weeks ago when a new model of an AI chatbot appeared, and I was like until 3 in the morning vibe coding and stuff like that. And I was like, what I'm doing here? Like, I was literally back then just playing with the tools rather than doing something useful. That changed meanwhile, but I was like wasting so much time. While yes, I was learning and all that stuff, but I should not have to do that in the middle of the night, right? And I remember my wife telling me that wasn't this tool supposed to make you more productive? You're spending way more time now at your laptop than before. And I was like, all right, this is a wake up call. And unfortunately, we need sometimes quite drastic wake up calls. And I can give you an example from last year. I suddenly had an accident playing paddle, and that forced me into reducing quite a bit my time working. I was like going from like 8 hour, 9 hour days to literally 3, 4 hours a day. And because I was in rehab, I wasn't having literally time to be on my desk, and I couldn't sit on my desk for too long because I had to move. Otherwise, the rehab won't go the right way. I had time to think. Speaking of like, and be honest with myself, like what I'm doing here, like I need to find a way my business to survive without me being in all the time. I have to delegate more, to remove things from my plate more. I think I sent for the first time in my life a hiring email to my email list. And while I was having help back then, I still knew that I need more help. And I was calling myself a solopreneur. But I was like, this doesn't work solo anymore. And most of us solopreneurs probably lie to ourselves that we do not need outside help. We can use technology, we can use that and that. And yes, we can, but without outside help, it's so freaking hard to actually survive in business and to do it for decades, or I don't know, living for our family and so on.
Yeah, it's diminishing returns. It's when you start putting in the beginning, solopreneurship can be exciting and great, especially with technology we have right now. But like I like the what you said, you have to you have to stop being honest with yourself. Can you actually create things all by yourself? And being from the world of tech and seeing so many different startups and people involved in it, and me growing my own business back in the day, the answer is no. You can never create anything on your own. You have to have a team of people, whether they're permanent or temporary, it doesn't matter. But I don't think we can create something great by ourselves alone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tempting. It's tempting because we are being told, yes, you can do this. It's easier than ever. The opportunities are endless and all that stuff. And while there is a grain of truth there, there is no truth in which, if you look around, there's no successful individual with some very like 0.0.0.01% that succeed by themselves. Even those people, you end up finding, oh, they actually have an assistant, or they hire coaches, consultants, and all that to get help, because we are not robots. Yet, at least.
And I think we're also very social creatures as humans alone. And my whole life I loved the topic of human behavior and what drives people to do one thing over the other thing. And that's my topic that I always explore and I bring into coaching as well. But we are social creatures, and I think we're thriving in the right conditions, and we're thriving around correct people. And that, like the example you made, which was brilliant, is that on the face value it looks like, oh, they done it all by themselves, or they were just this guy, one guy in a shed, but it wasn't one guy, and he had support, and there were other people around him, and he had to seek help. So, this narrative that we can handle it all and do it all on our own. And I think it leaks out into business as well. And this is what I think some very often when people grow something quite quickly, their brains are not ready to catch up with reality that they're not alone anymore. And the team is not 2, 3 people, it's, 100, 300, 500 people. And you can no longer what got you to 300 people will not get you to 1,000. Your behavior has to change. You have to change with it. And the only way to change is to see where that's needed, see where your, patterns that no longer serve you are there, and, address that, fix that, change that. And we're very good at change. We're very adaptable.
And that's the beauty of being human, right? Because no matter what age you are in, like from the Bronze Age to today's AI age, we always manage to adapt. We always manage to find ways of living life and enjoying life and doing things I don't say the right way because we made a lot of mistakes, but that's part of the being a human is, right?
It is. It is. And like I said, mistakes are the best. You never learn from winning. You learn from losing and making mistakes and not getting it right. And that's why it's so exciting for me when I see my clients come in, is because when they just come in, they feel like it's a failure. And when they walk out, they feel like this is the best thing that ever happened to them. And all they had to do is to reframe and address the right things in their life. And everything becomes a success. So I love to see that the most.
Yeah, I bet. And that's a very fulfilling feeling, right? It's so wonderful to see transformation in someone. And while I'm not a coach, I'm a consultant, I end up coaching quite a bit since you know the saying, like most of us, we don't have a business problem, we have an internal one. And yeah, it's so nice to see that you managed to help someone achieve some sort of transformation. And on that note, like if someone listening recognize themselves, like where they can reach out to you for help.
You can connect with me anywhere on social media, on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, not as much as I should be, but I'm trying to cover the bases. I do have my own website as well, and that's where you can see my offer. Right now, I'm actually running an offer where, people can come into me, turn to me with, the backlog of things. We'll find one thing together in one session. It's a long one. It's almost 2 hours, but we find this one key thing that if we address that, that's going to transform and change the way things are going. And yes, if anybody's interested, I'm happy always to connect, always to chat, even just to have a conversation. Just send me a message, email, or any others.
Amazing. And the links will be down below in the show notes so you can access them with ease to get in touch with Anastasia. What is one thing listeners can do this week to discover whether they have run out of mental runway or not?
I think it's just sit down and be honest with yourself. And when I say honest, is think really, really carefully. Are you where you want to be right now? And if you're not, are you taking steps to get there? And if the answer is no, you should dig deeper down, because that means that something is off. You're not looking where you need to be looking right now. You're filling your space with issues and noise, and you might be serving lots of people, and it's very fulfilling to help. But at some point, you have to turn and help yourself too.
Yes, and honesty, right? Honesty. While it's so hard to be honest with ourselves because we always love to lie to ourselves, and it's a must because otherwise we'll keep on lying to ourselves and make excuses and postpone things, and we end up in a situation in which yes, you cannot think clearly or honestly since you're like this topic of the conversation, you're out of runway, right?
That's it. And the biggest commodity we have is time. So time will always pass, whether you do something or you don't. So I think it's good to decide where are you at? Do you want to stay where you are, or do you want to be where you want to be?
That's a beautiful end of the conversation.
Thank you so much, Kay.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. And for anyone listening, this was Anastasija Lynch. And if this conversation gave you language for a decision you have been carrying out without enough room to process it, share it with the person everyone turns to. If you want more conversation like this, consider subscribing. I'm Gabe Marushka, and see you in the wild.